And away we go. It is the BCJ Podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com. As always, if you're headed down to the banks, getting ready to take in some Reds baseball this weekend, stop by our good friends at the Holy Grail. They will get you taken care of, get some great food, and of course, get yourself a Cincy Light, or 50 cents from every Cincy Light purchase. Our good friends at Cincy Reigns and the UC NIL Collective. All right, boys, let's get this show on the road. It's going to be an interesting one. There hasn't been a lot that's happened since Monday.
Everybody come in and give us some ideas on things to talk about.
Right. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm okay. Well, I've had a week and a half, whatever it is now. So I'm good. I had a nice day today. I got some, Twitter never disappoints if you look in the right places. I got some good laughs today, but otherwise it's been a pretty crummy week and a half. But we
everything back under control.
Did you get to go to WWE on Friday?
For half of it.
Well, that's beats a blank.
And then Will wanted to leave. And I kind of did too, which was, not for this podcast or anything else, but just, we're making it happen. So we are in the process of we're in contract negotiations for a potential new co-host of Bearcat Journal podcast. If you guys saw on Twitter the other day, maybe Aaron can find that on the BCJ timeline and throw that on for the people that don't have Twitter. Young Mr. William decided that he was going to have his own podcast the other night and wheel out my chair and put on his headphones. And he said he's going to talk about wrestling, football, basketball, and pictures of girls with Chad. And, he gave us some nice comedic relief. So 4-year-olds are into podcasting now. Clearly anybody can do it.
I mean, what was he saying the entire time?
But why? But why, Chad? That was like his go. He just said that the whole time. But why, Chad? And I'm like, does he think that that's what I say? And he's like bouncing his head back and forth, like, why? Like,
I mean, I'm going to have to go back and see if you do that like more than I realized.
I don't think he can even hear me talking. Like, he's usually up and getting ready for bed by the time we go on. So he doesn't know.
His vision of podcasting is just, but why?
Yeah, exactly.
But why, Chad?
Well,
maybe that's a segment.
It's probably what he's thinking to himself every time I tell him to do something. And it's, it's like, but why, Dad? So maybe I don't know, but it was much needed. It was good. We got a good laugh out of it.
Kelsey just interrupted me to ask a question that appeared to be very important. The question: what channel is Lifetime?
You seem like a guy that watches a lot of Lifetime, that you would know that right off the top of your head. They also have this thing called The Guide. Press your thumb down and scroll until you find it.
She wanted a cheat code. How do I get there? All right, we're getting some people in the room. We're going to do kind of an Ask Us Anything centric pod. We have a couple topics that we want to get to, but we don't want to, realistically, we'd rather not do just a repeat version of the BBP with the same conversations from Monday night. We would like to potentially avoid that. But we do have a couple things to get to. There you go. There's Will in the chair asking, but why? But why?
Yeah.
But why? Outstanding. I mean, we'll add him to the team. I don't, you think he get him and Keegan, like have them do a show?
You're not going to have to pay him much. His output
Right.
probably won't be great. So.
Any update with Shaquan Stewart? It doesn't feel like it's trending in a good direction for the Bearcats. I don't think they're out. But I don't think they are. I don't think that's the channel for Spectrum in Northern Kentucky, Mama Simone. But thank you. I don't even think we have channels in the 1200s.
It's like Spectrum has all like these double up channels.
Anywho,
yeah, he's listening and watching now, just saying your name over and over again.
Hi, Will. Yeah, I've gotten the sense that it's kind of, if I had to guess, probably Ohio State and Georgetown, which it's funny how things kind of you anticipate what are going to be like the driving factors. And before a kid, really gets into like decision-making mode. And it sounds like one of them, even though the staff at Georgetown is different and the staff at Ohio State is different. The guy that recruited him to Ohio State last year is now the head coach. And Ohio State and Georgetown were both heavily involved. I think there is, just a little bit more comfort and familiarity with schools that they had been involved with in the past. And let's face it, Dave, this isn't a roster with a ton of space right now.
No, I mean, if you were in a situation last year where you were blocked by a really good player, and I'm not necessarily comparing anybody on UC's front court to Flip, but like, I'm probably going to this place that is like, here's 30 minutes a game, man. We need you.
Right.
So.
Well, and look,
and
his dad is right. Like, one of the things his dad said in an interview was, we basically redshirted our freshman year. He needs to be in a place where he's on the floor to continue to develop. And that, for his game, that is correct. Like, Shaquan Stewart is not a finished product in terms of his skill level. So the more time he's on the floor, the more advanced his development is potentially going to become. I can understand it from that perspective. You're a 5-star recruit. You've got all the potential and the talent. You've got the work ethic. You're about the right things. You're going to want to go somewhere that gives you an opportunity to get on the floor as frequently as possible. So,
but Chad, why? Why, Chad?
Why? Why?
We need that sound bite right there to just be like, but why?
So yeah. It's like I said, I don't think they're out, but I think they've got an uphill climb, and you don't want to be near the finish line with a lot of ground to make up.
Well, I mean, I think it's a worthwhile shot to take, but we talked about it. I brought it up last week. I was more excited for the potential addition for 2025 than 2024. Well, and his dad is essentially saying that we're not looking at 2025. We are looking at minutes to be developed and to play a lot of basketball in 2024. And maybe he would come here and that would happen because he became really good. But like, at this point, I don't think that's something UC is offering or can offer, excuse me. But I also don't fault them for not being necessarily interested in what UC can offer as far as the true on the court minutes type of a situation. Now, I'm sure they love Wes. I'm sure they love the coaches. I'm sure they would love the idea of being in the Big 12, playing on a potential NCAA tournament team, being on a roster with Jizzle James. Like, those are all major, major pluses. But the bottom line in this situation seems to be minutes. And UC cannot offer, at least right now, without him getting here and proving that he is a 30-minute-a-game guy, they can't offer that. So I don't blame them for gravitating more towards places that can, regardless of all the other things I mentioned that may be in UC's favor. I mean, those are all ancillary parts to, but can I play?
Right. This is a good one. If you had $1,000 to gamble, how much are you putting on the over in wins for UC football this year?
I don't even know what the number is. It's like 5.5.
I think it was 5.5 the last I saw. Aaron, can you check that out real quick?
I've not looked at that stuff. It's with the portal and everything. It's like, who's on the roster, who's not on the roster. I know UC's in a little different situation than a lot of teams in the portal. They certainly seem to be in more of the supplemental, building up the bottom of the roster, filling in the gaps, putting themselves in a position to where we talked about last year, where last year was a lot of like
5.5.
We need to get some guys because if something happens, we're like, we don't have any players at this position. I don't feel like that's the case anymore. So I think some teams are collecting as many just random guys as possible and see how it works. And I feel like UC's strategy is more of true roster building. We'll see if that pans out. If the over-under is 5.5, what was the question? If I had $1,000, I would put a decent amount on the over. I mean, probably some of it in the hopeful category that they're able to take that step from 3 to 6 or more. But not maybe 70-30, 65-35, something like that, percentage-wise. I don't know. I think they have a chance to be better. How much better? Again, I think there's going to be. I think with Oklahoma and Texas out of the league, not that they were this like dominating force last year, but I just think it's going to be a lot of toss-up games. Like, I don't see that. Like, I'd be pretty surprised on May 1st without really digging into any of these other teams at all. Like, no idea on most of these teams. Would be pretty surprised if whoever wins the conference has like 2 or fewer losses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who would be the separator. Like, I mean, does Oklahoma State have kind of some momentum after finishing as strong as they did last year?
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I think Kansas could have a nice team, but a lot of that depends on Daniel's health. But I mean, I think Jason. See, that's the thing. Like, I don't want to comment on it because I just like with transfers and we're in the final year of the COVID where you could have COVID guys, I guess. So like,
I mean, I guess you could have like injury guys that are gonna, but for the most part, this will be the final transfer year for COVID guys.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know who Texas Tech had, who decided to come back for another year at Texas Tech or whatever, So, yeah, I mean, give me a little bit more time after we see who they potentially add in the portal, and we can, I might have a little bit better idea and look at the schedule. But
It's an interesting one, Jason. With summer AAU beginning, spring AAU, summer AAUs, we still got a month or two. With summer AAU beginning, refreshes on the top targets in the 2025 class. I'm fascinated kind of by this as well. I mean, the name that we've talked about a lot is Davion Hannah. There's been a little bit of involvement with like a Jerry Easter, Malachi Moreno, Nico Bundalo, who Keegan got to see this weekend. Apparently, he almost got into like 3 fights. So I circled him as a guy that Dave would love to have on the roster.
Yeah, for sure.
Dorian Jones from up in Cleveland is a guy that they've looked at a lot. I'm really interested.
How does the 25 class just in general kind of seem as a whole?
I would have a little bit better answer to that once I get on the road. It's supposed to be better than the past couple.
Okay.
The thing that's fascinating to me, Dave, is this is going to be a big class for UC.
Right.
Because you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose Simas, you're going to lose Aziz, you're going to lose Day. Dan has talked about going. There's always the question, if Jizzle has a big year, does he take a run at the draft? CJ Frederick will be done. You're going to be back in that spot where you're turning over a large chunk of the roster, and the group behind that is largely going to be inexperienced.
Right. So
and young.
How many high school kids do you want
versus how much do you have to like keep an eye on the portal? I mean, I
would think you'd want to keep more than just an eye on it. Like,
well, you know what I mean. Yeah,
you're gonna have to replace that many. I mean, you would potentially need some serious portal additions.
Look, the days of 3, 4, 5 person recruiting classes, I think, are gone. 2 to 3, like high school kids, I don't think you're going to see ever many more than that.
Probably not.
It just doesn't make any sense because, especially in this league, if they help you, they're going to be rotational. They're not. There was one star big guy or 1 star freshman in the league this year in Jacoby Walter, and then a bunch of rotational guys. But that was it for freshmen. So I think if you're looking at, you're going to have to replace a lot of the top of your roster. I don't know how much high school really factors into that.
Well, we've seen it. Some of these bigger programs that have brought in larger high school classes over the last couple of years, it feels like a high number of those guys have left.
Right. So Keegan will be in Atlanta at EYBL this weekend. I'll be in Indy in a couple weeks. I think I've got family stuff this weekend, and then volleyball next weekend, and then I'll be on the road for a couple weeks to the end of May. So there's going to be a lot of that coming. But I just don't know how much of a focus you really can put on high school, especially this year it made sense. Like you go get the 2 Tylers, you get 2 top 75 level kids, and you bring them into the program, and you get a couple transfers, and it's right around a 50-50 proposition, and you roll with it. When you're replacing a bunch of guys, man, I mean, look at what Oklahoma State is, I think, the case study and what not to do. Because they rolled the dice on the fact that they were going to bring in young guys. They're going to go young, have a couple veterans around them, and the end result was the coach got fired and everybody left.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you'll have an answer for this one, but I'll ask, Dave. What is there more of? Red zone touchdowns in football or wins in men's basketball next year? So,
How many red zone touchdowns did we have this year?
well, I mean, you're talking 12 games.
I mean, it's going to be, I would say it's wins in basketball.
Yeah, because you're talking, you would think 22, 23, 24 wins in basketball.
I would say
Right
maybe
there.
even, like a few more even. I mean, they're talking about
In this league, I wouldn't say that.
2 red zone touchdowns a game.
I mean, if you win 24 games, that means you only have 7 losses. 24-7.
I'm talking about like when
Going
the
into-
season's over.
Okay, I'm talking about regular, like
Regular season,
regular season.
then it's a closer thing to me, but I'd still probably go basketball wins.
2 red zone touchdowns a game it's a considerable amount of red zone touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, you get that, you got to factor in like how many times are you going to get into the red zone, then how many times are you going to, like, when you score in the red zone. So I would probably lean towards basketball wins. I mean,
I think I would too.
I'm hoping that we don't have a lot of red zone touchdowns. I'm hoping the offense is a lot more explosive than it was last year. Like, getting to the red zone last year wasn't the problem. It was scoring once we got there, but we also didn't score very many touchdowns,
I have the
score
stats.
many explosive play touchdowns. So,
Aaron has the stats.
oh, okay.
They were in the red zone a total of 43 times. They scored 33 of those 43 times, but 22 of those were touchdowns.
That is a terrible percentage.
I mean, 22 though makes it a damn good question.
Yeah.
Now, Mark, are we talking basketball wins in total, regular season and postseason, or are we talking just regular season? If you're talking just regular season, knowing the struggles that they had last year, Dave, to still score 22 makes me think this actually is a lot more in total.
Yeah.
I think I would go with red zone touchdowns now that Aaron has given us the numbers.
See, I'm going to say the opposite, though, because I think the offense will be better and more explosive. So I think the red zone opportunities will be lower. The percentage will be better. But I think they're going to score more non-red zone touchdowns this year.
Okay. I still think you're a run-based offense. You're going to be in the red zone a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are doing great with the Ask Us Anything. Chances we get David DeJulius in a nasty natty jersey this year? I don't know. Troy Copain, Jacob Evans, Jaron Cumberland is seem to work to be a pretty effective trio. I would guess Dave would want the ball quite a bit. I'll go 35%. But that's without, like, I haven't talked to Kevin or Cash or any of those guys that are involved in running that.
Right.
So I wouldn't have that answer. Dave, thoughts on the Colorado mess?
Oh, it's interesting. On the one hand, like, the part of the, like, having, like, the players leaving doesn't really bother me at all. I don't really get into the semantics of, like, good way to do it, bad way to do it. I think making it as public as they have is not something that I would be for. I think and it's just weird in the sense of, like, they've done these articles. The Athletic did one where they actually talked to some of the former players, and I think someone from 247 maybe did an article that was published today. I don't know if they talked to players or just kind of looked at the numbers of it all.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how that's sustainable. I don't know. I don't know how you, now that this stuff has been public for going on 2 years, and now that everybody knows that what goes on when you go there, whether you're really, really good or not, I think we're going to start seeing, maybe, again, there's good players and are going to still want to go there. But I do think we might start seeing a level of pushback on, like, you're a good player and you can go anywhere. Why do you want to go be a part of that circus? Like,
yeah, I mean,
and the
one,
like Dion calling him furniture, and like I'm bringing my whatever, all the buzzy things that he said when he first started is whatever to me. Like, whether you say that or whether you have a nice heart-to-heart sit down with a kid and just tell him that, you know, he should probably start looking somewhere else, I don't really care about that part. The part that I would not be a fan of if I was a Colorado fan is like him and his son just going on Twitter and like almost egging the situation on and blasting former players. Like, I'm pretty open and honest on here about how, like, that I kind of don't care about what you have to do to win, but I also don't want to have to kind of just be like, I really wish I wasn't a fan of a team whose coach is out there publicly saying these things and doing these things, and almost feels like using his sons to like do some of his dirty work or whatever. Like, I don't want to have to be forced to root for that. You know, keep your shady shit in the background. We all know it happens. You know, before NIL, we all know people bought players and did certain things, and we all know guys got punted, and we all know staffs turnover. Like, all that stuff is already known. But just keep that behind the scenes, man.
Isn't the key not handling it like apparently the way Dion has handled it, where he just like brings guys into his office? It's like, you're not good. You're like, you suck. Get out.
Well,
Like,
some of them, I mean, I read the Max Olson Athletic article. Like, some of these guys never actually talked to him at any point in their careers there. Not just when it was like time to go. Like, just never talked to him. There was one story, an offensive lineman. They had an offensive lineman group chat, and like the offensive line assistant was in the group chat, just said "good luck, fellas," and then deleted like 5 of the guys out of the group chat.
Yeah, there's a better way to handle.
And I guess that was their sign that they needed to go figure out where they were going to play college football next.
Look, forget being kids. I think we get carried away with that at some points. I remember in my 20s. I wanted to scream and yell at anybody that would listen that called college athletes kids because they're adults. So on a human level, that's not how you deal with people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, at what point are parents? I mean, I saw Bud Elliott from 24/7. I guess I don't know who the player was. A very, very highly thought of, recruited wide receiver, I believe. His mom basically said, like, this is, and I don't know where, he's not on Colorado. I don't even know if he's being recruited by Colorado, but essentially said, like, my kid we would never go to this situation. And basically then, I guess, turned her account private. I don't know if that's because, like, Colorado fans were interventions giving her shit or whatever, but, like, I feel like at some point, again, like I said, not every kid, but there's gonna be kids and families who are just like, we're not doing this. Like, regardless of how good we think you are and how good they think you are, like, we're not doing this. So, yeah, I mean, she said, for those that are just listening, you know, wow, this is beyond disturbing. This is how leaders of a team behave. This is what the University of Colorado promotes. Throwing up emoji. I'm so blessed my son conducts himself as a professional and doesn't bully his teammates or put down others. Like I'm not going to read it all, but like, at some point, that's not like, and you know, this is down the line. Like, Shedur's a very, very good player. What happens when he's not there?
Right.
Which is likely next year. I mean, I can't imagine I don't know if he's a senior or whatever, but I imagine he will go into the NFL draft next year. So, like, what happens then? I don't know. I'm not, you know, I know a lot of people wanted UC to pursue Dion. I was not one of them from the jump. And it wasn't necessarily because of all this, because I don't think we could have envisioned it being what it has become. But
Sure.
there were guys talking about like cameras. I mean, it was essentially like Hard Knocks.
A reality show. Yeah, it's a reality show.
Cameras in the huddle in practice. But that stuff's not even the interpersonal way that the coaching staff seem to relate to, communicate with, and just is not something that I would want one of my teams to be doing.
Right. Damn nice to see Fred Durst kept his red hat. First time I've ever heard that one. You should see when Aaron and I go double red hat on the nightcap. This is a good one. What was each BCJ member's worst facial hair decision? I got two. Aaron, you want to pop in?
I had my freshman year of college. I had sideburns that came down to my jawline.
Like that, like I called them Idahos. Like they looked like the state of Idaho. They kind of came down and then came up a little bit.
I like to angle them like Wolverine a little bit.
Oh, okay.
It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous.
That makes sense.
I paired that with just the chin. I don't know what the fuck I was doing.
So I've got two, Aaron. I'll give you two. So I used to not be able to grow hair right here. So like the mustache was good, but it just kind of stopped and didn't connect. So I went top and bottom, like Fu Manchu with the mustache. And then I went Louisville. I went full Louisville and went line beard. But that one was a quick.
We've all been on the line beard.
Excuse me. No, we have not. Like no, we have not.
The line beard was like a one-time experimental thing. And quickly after I saw the reaction to it, after about a day, the line beard didn't really exist anymore.
See, yeah, I don't really have any worst ones. I mean, I've always grown out like sideburns fairly long. But like I've had this ability for a long time. So if I ever did something and didn't like it or whatever, I could just get rid of it and just grow something different right back. I've always wanted like my Tennessee guy friend group to for like No Shave November, like we all have to draw a terrible like facial hair thing out of a hat, and you have to grow that and see who was willing to keep it the longest.
I can't. Like if it looks bad, I just can't. Like a part of that, of course, now is because I'm on camera.
I mean, my dad, like he had the full on like caterpillar push broom, whatever you want to call it, like massive 70s, 80s, just mustache forever. Like every picture growing up, he had it. My entire like young kid life, he had it. And then I don't know, it was like maybe like 10, 11, 12, something like that.
Trying to picture Dave's dad with the.
He just decided one day to shave it off, and then he never grew it back. It was like one of the craziest things ever. That he went from every picture I'd ever seen, he had it, and then one day it's gone, and it was just like never happening again.
One year for St. Patrick's Day, I decided to go mohawk and the Fu Man chin strap. It was absolutely
with no middle,
just
right?
So
Yes. Yeah.
98 degrees boy band, like little skinny goatee.
So gross. So gross.
Yeah, but no bottom, Dave. You shave the bottom
Oh, you
and
shaved-
everything
Oh, so
It was just a Fu Man chin strap.
oh my. Yeah.
like this.
Yeah, I don't the connector?
It was so stupid.
Oh my god.
It's like you're playing Excite Bike and just putting ramps everywhere.
Well,
Talk about a dated reference.
we've all done that thing where we just shave different things as we're like trimming
Yeah.
up, right?
Oh yeah,
And
as
that's
you
what I-
you take
and I-
stuff down, you're like, how would I look if I just kept this? And
So-
you're like,
so
actually,
I-
I'd
so
look
I-
like a child molester, so I probably need to take that off.
So I just left it like that, and I think it lasted all of 3 days or so.
And
I
then you
was like,
went out in public and realized that you should probably remove it.
"Oh, I didn't care. It was for St. Patty's. And sprayed
Right.
the hair green and just didn't give a shit."
Yeah, no crazy one.
If they don't land Stewart, name 3 guys you would like to see them go after. Arthur Kaluma.
I don't even know who's like in the portal to go. Like, I don't
It's
even
a
know.
lot. It's
Yeah.
I mean, in the there was a bunch yesterday. Not as many today as I thought,
Yeah,
but maybe we'll get a rush on that tomorrow. And then you had a couple draft guys that aren't going to go back to college, but just in case they covered their ass and put their name.
Oh,
in the
you know who I
portal.
saw that entered the portal that I feel like I would like?
Who's that?
Seems like he might fit the roster, and I mean, again, we're talking about. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I can't even think of his first name. Doug Christie's kid at Minnesota.
yeah, I saw that. That was a late one. I mean, that's another team. I think last year they went young with the idea of like we're gonna go young, and they had a pretty good year, and now everybody's gone.
Because he's what, like a wing that can shoot.
Yeah. I kind of would, I'd be interested in, and I can't. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name for the life of me. The Turkish kid at UCLA.
Oh
That
God,
Nick
no
had
way
that
you
was-
can pronounce that.
No, I'm not trying.
I think his first name starts with a B and his last name starts with a B.
Yeah, I'm not even giving that a shot. He's like 6'9", 6'10". He could play the 4. He's skilled. He probably still needs a little bit more development. I think, he was brought in kind of to be like a front of the roster guy at UCLA, and that just didn't happen in year 1, but I still averaged almost 6 points a game, I think. I think that one would be interesting, like, a guy behind CMOS, if you're settling on CMOS as your 4. A guy like that would bring some offensive skill. Because that was the one concern I had with Stewart. If you played him at the 4 with Aziz, or you played him and Arlington Page together, you're back in that situation where you're mostly 3-on-5 on offense.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work today, Dave.
No.
It just doesn't work. Like everybody last year was up in arms about playing an offense with 2 bigs. I said this on the board yesterday. The problem wasn't playing an offense with 2 bigs. It's playing an offense with 2 bigs that couldn't score.
Didn't score.
In their respective roles. Like maybe Vic would have been better as an offensive-minded 5 if you put him at the 5. But then you're taking Aziz off the floor and you're taking out the defense. And so if you're gonna, and it looks, most of the guys that we've seen associated with them have been 4s or 5s over the past week. Even names that they've just kind of kicked the tires on, which tells me that's, kind of where they're at in terms of how they want to finish out the last spot. And I also think you better get a little bit of insurance if Aziz is out for 3 or 4 games with a sore back or something happens, to where then you don't just have Arlington Page as your center and nobody else. Aziz or CMOS isn't playing the 5. Like,
No.
you can't. It's really difficult to have just 2 bigs on your roster. So somebody that can be a 4 or 5, potentially or preferably maybe somebody that can do a little bit of both. So set your filters and look there.
Yeah,
Would be my
you have
advice.
to. You don't. We've the hindsight 2020 of maybe having too many bigs. You don't want to go so far the opposite direction that what happened. Yeah, like I said, what happens is if Aziz is hurt and then some other guy Page gets in foul trouble, or
Right.
then you have essentially nobody at that spot right now.
Is there anybody in the draft process they're looking at in case of return? I'm sure there is. That is way down the road. I mean, it's not something you can count on because those decisions are so volatile.
Well, and they're so late,
all over the place, and they're so late.
Like, do you really want to run the risk of we want to get that guy and we think we have a really good relationship, but guess what? If that guy is that good and he decides to come back, you know how many other teams who have one spot left are going to be gunning for that guy too?
Or teams that have 3 spots left because they didn't get what they wanted and they got a bunch of money to spend.
Yeah, and
really they're waiting on, like, their last ditch effort is we're going to try to get every guy we can that comes back to college and is in the transfer portal. So I just don't think it's a sound game plan to really look at that or to really even be concerned with that yet. If they get to that point and they've got a spot open, I'm sure we'll talk about it.
I mean, I guess maybe if you've already laid the groundwork.
Sure, but you better still have,
Again, like, you might have laid the groundwork, but X team missed out and has a boatload of money, and they're like, we don't care if everybody else around the country finds out that we spent this much. It doesn't really matter to us what they think. If they think we overpaid, I mean, who gives a shit? Like,
it might be out of their price range, but it's not out of ours.
Right. And what we always talk about, and we need a guy. So, if you need something in your life, if you very much need something, price becomes not as important.
Right. Any replacement for Josh Leffler yet? No. And Wes is that playing that tighter than anything I can remember. There's not a lot of I've tried to do a couple sweeps around the country talking to my contacts, and they are keeping that one very tight to the vest for now. So as soon as I hear something, I will let you guys know. I don't know what that means. Thoughts on the Xavier transfer class? I
don't care.
Haven't paid really any attention to it. So on the surface, I guess it looks pretty solid. They got a couple good players, which you expected them to do because they lost half their roster. I really don't know. And basketball, you see a lot of ex-players and coaches interested in coaching jobs and positions open. When do you see more of that on the football side? There's a ton of it on the football side. I mean, there's more than 2 handfuls of former UC players that are coaching around Ryan Manilak and D'Angelo Smith and
obviously Mike
Mickens, we know, Walter Stewart,
Trevor,
Austin
Buznak. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch out there.
And look, football, if you can make it through that grad transfer year and all of a sudden there's a coaching change or
grad assistant.
Grad assistant, you know what I mean? Transfers on the brain.
I know.
If you can make it through that early part, there's a good chance, like, you've already, between the guys that have coached you and now the guys you're working with as a grad assistant, like Austin Buznak went right to Youngstown State with Doug Phillips.
Yeah.
And went from, an off-field analyst role or whatever, grad assistant, then off-field analyst, I think, for a year, and then straight to offensive line coach at a D1 school. So you don't see as much as guys sticking at their, like, where they graduated from and getting into the business, especially at this level, because you want a guy to go down and get hopefully some experience before potentially coming back. But I mean, Gino, there's a lot of guys from, the 06, 07, even a little earlier with Gino, all the way through 2015. There's a bunch of those guys that are in. UC was nominated for an institutional NIL award. What does that mean? It means that they've done as good a job as anybody getting their players the essence of why NIL was created. Creating brand partnerships, like you saw the Skyline Chili thing with the offensive linemen. Dez had a bunch of stuff when he was here. Dante Corleone had his own burger and had his own pizza. It's for the stuff that the school, while they can't help with, it's part of what they're teaching their athletes about, the way that they're training them, the way that they're educating them on like looking for the right NIL deals. It's more of that. It doesn't really have anything to do with Cincy Reigns or how much money is in the war chest. Yeah. I'm glad that's a good question, because I think people were maybe a little confused by that today, saying, look, Cincinnati's got one of the top 8 NILs in college sports. No. That is not correct. Not correct. No comment.
Not familiar with that person's work.
You're not missing much. Can you name 5 things to make you optimistic about football? Not just the season, but the program.
Can those be players?
Sure.
Okay.
I think number 1 for me, Dave, was going through the spring and seeing, and Aaron and I think it was Aaron, it might have been BBP, I don't remember. Talked about this a little bit in terms of the number of freshmen that we saw flash this spring. Gives me a positive vibe, not just for those freshmen, but for the talent evaluation process of this staff.
Mm-hmm.
That these weren't guys that, this is almost verbatim. I think it was Monday. It's almost verbatim what I said Monday. I hate repeating something like this. But
it was BBP.
Yeah, it's pertinent to the answer. There are days early in like the spring and days early in the fall where you're just focusing on the new guys, right? You want to get a feel for size and speed and, athleticism and how do they look. But it was more the days where we were just watching what was happening in front of us. And you're like, oh, damn, there's Sanks. There's Simeon Coleman. There's Cale Woodburn. There's Gavin Grover, And as you kind of bump down the list, like, it's like, damn, there was 10 of them. And 6, 7 regularly were guys that caught my eye. That's a pretty high. That's not to say that they're going to go on to be great players, but it's to say that they look like they belong, as opposed to, there have been many camps where it's like, what about the freshmen? And it's like, none of them have done shit. Like, I don't know if they're good or not. Nobody has shown me anything on this field. It's also like Jonathan Thompson. Remember Jonathan Thompson, the first 2 days at Higher Ground, I was like, damn, Jonathan Thompson's with the threes, but Jonathan Thompson is finding the ball every snap. So
yeah, it's kind of like when you're
Jonathan Thompson.
It's kind of like when you're talking about FCS guys in the draft process. Like, they're playing at a lower level. Are they dominating?
Right.
If you're a freshman, yes, we understand you're on the threes. But are you showing us, are you consistently making plays that say, okay, not that, okay, you're going to challenge for a starter or even a backup role, but okay, like, this is a real guy who can maybe make it at this level, who we can now develop in the next year or two.
Right.
I would say things I'm optimistic about: Brendan Sorsby.
Agreed.
The running back position.
Agreed.
I am optimistic about the way that the recruiting department is going about identifying potential targets. I think this is coming to light, especially with the offensive line and defensive line players that they are recruiting. I am not going to take anything away from any player that played for Luke Fickell, especially on the defensive line outside of Myjai Sanders and even Scott Satterfield this year, who were Luke Fickell recruits. And there will always be exceptions. But I do not anticipate any more 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2" defensive ends being recruited to UC. They are absolutely leaning into height, weight, speed, projectable traits, guys that the numbers tell you this is the body type, this is the athletic profile of someone that can be a high-level player and potentially get drafted. We saw it today. Walt Stewart was in Chicago and offered a 2025 defensive end who is not rated very highly from 24/7. I mean, he's a low 3-star. UC is now his best offer, and he is going into his senior year at 6'4", 230. Would we all like them to get a bunch of 4 and 5 stars? Of course we would. Like, I'm not saying I would rather them do this than that. It's not an either or. It is a both. But they are going to recruit to a projectable type of athlete who they feel that is not close to their tapped out potential, that they can say, okay, this kid is already 6'4", 230, shows a high level of athleticism. It's now our responsibility to make him 6'4", 260 and turn him into a legitimate edge defender. I'm not interested in edge defenders that are necessarily awesome at 18 years old. I don't know how much more awesome they're going to get.
Right.
Now they can still get way better. Obviously, 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars. That doesn't matter to me necessarily. I do think the recruiting services do a better job of identifying high-level talent, but I've also always said, like, what the hell is the difference between an 83 and an 87? Like, right. You're telling me that the 900th best kid in the country that you say is the 900th best kid in the country is that much worse than the 800th best kid, and you can necessarily identify those guys and rank them accordingly? Like, it's not hard. Like, it's not hard to see a 5-star, guys. Like, there's about 30 every year. They're pretty obvious. There's about 100 4-stars. They're less obvious, but still pretty obvious. But, like, whether you're an 83 or an 87 or an 84 or an 85, like, I don't know. I don't get wrapped up in that, but I do get wrapped up because of me liking the NFL and me liking the draft in the body type, the traits, the athleticism. Like, that stuff matters. That's why NFL teams have thresholds. If you're a cornerback and you have under 30-inch, I'm just using the example of 30-inch arms, these are the number of players that have actually panned out. Like, none of them have been first-round picks. Like, right. So you need to, and I'm sure they did before, but we did get into, outside of Myjai Sanders, at least of the guys that hit, a whole lot of the not prototypical edge defenders. And I think they're doing the same thing on the offensive line. 6'4" or taller, whatever weight comes along with that, get them here, let them figure out. We'll figure out if they're a guard or a tackle. But give me the guys that fit the profile, and then it's on us as coaches to develop that into whatever lane we see them going.
Yeah. Brad Glenn's defense, I'm excited about.
Brad Glenn coaches
why not Brad Glenn. You know what I mean. Tyson Vite. Tyson Vite's defense, I'm excited about. I was looking ahead at another question. Tyson Vite, that has been an effective way to stabilize the powerful offenses of this league for the past 7 years at Iowa State. So if you can emulate that, and you can be one of the teams that does a good job, sometimes a great job, given that Iowa State defense and how they've played, I think that's a reason to be optimistic when you're looking at the future of where this thing is headed.
I agree. I think special teams is a reason to be optimistic. I think we have a very good battery of long snapper, holder, kicker, punter. They're still Carter Brown's still a college kicker. That joke will last forever. But I think he is, a pretty high level dude. At least for me, the anxiety level has gone down considerably when he is kicked compared to some other years. I think special like the returning coverage games can be better, but I think we have a pretty good kicking situation. I'll say that. I won't lump entire special teams into it. I'll say the kicking situation. Is that 5 combined? I mean, we could probably do 5 each, but there'd probably be some overlap. So,
do you have one more?
Do I have one more? Let me think here. Do I have one more? Tight end. I'm interested. I'm optimistic. I'm interested to see how they go about potentially utilizing the position in different ways than they did last year. I feel like for whatever reason, whether it was personnel, plan, whatever you want to call it, kind of an afterthought last year. I know we've had a couple guys transfer out. Just added a transfer in Francis Sherman from Arkansas, who was at Louisville, so has the tie with those ties to the staff. Has not really been a stats production guy, but when you lose 2 guys,
he was used pretty heavily, not crazy,
in that like H-back type role.
Yeah.
That Caleb Schmitz did a lot of last year, so it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out. But I mean, I think we've talked a lot about Joe Royer and the health and the production and lack thereof at Ohio State for a myriad of reasons. What can they get out of him? I think Joey Belgian can be, like, going back to that red zone thing. That's a guy I think you could see being used a lot in the red zone, and we've talked a good bit about the 2 freshmen. So I'm interested, optimistic that the middle of the field can be used more. Obviously, a good place to have a good tight end. They really didn't do a whole lot in the middle of the field last year, regardless of whether it was tight end receiver. So that's a spot I would like to see, hopefully, used more in the offense this year.
I would agree, and you would hope with Sorsby, you've got a guy that can utilize that more so than was able to in the offense last year. Is Danny Fortson still alive? As far as I know,
yes, I believe so. Don't quote me on that, but
I mean,
I feel like if he wasn't, we'd know.
I think he has a kid that's pretty good. A daughter.
There probably would have been some communication sent out from the university.
Yeah. Sounds like NCAA tournament expansion is inevitable. What's your ideal number?
The fewest amount of additions possible.
I think it's probably
so 72.
Add 2 more play-in games, which doesn't really change anything.
Just add four games. Like, no one likes this from a fan's perspective. We will all still watch it. I'm not gonna pitch a fit over it. Like, it's gonna happen.
It doesn't bother me at all. Not even a little bit.
And especially without knowing exactly like what they're gonna do, I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, this is, I don't like the idea. I think it was fine at 64. It went to 68. Nothing really changed there. One thing though that I do wish they did, and I'm sure these the power, whatever you want to call it, 6, I guess, in basketball, probably won't agree with it. I do not like the fact that they put 16 seeds in playing games.
Oh, well, you better. It's going to get a lot worse than that.
Oh, I know. I don't like it. I think if you qualified for the actual ass tournament, like, you did the thing that everybody tells you have to do to make the tournament. I would put all if it was me. Again, I don't think this is the way that it's going to happen because all the schools wanting the tournament to expand are wanting it to expand so they can get more big schools in. They're not going to then turn around and say, okay, yeah, we let us all in. Now we're cool with being the playing game. I just don't like that the 16 seeds are there. I think it should be whatever the number is of the last
here's where I disagree, Dave.
Teams should be in those spots.
Here's where I disagree. 2 of those teams every year now are getting a chance for a tournament win. And you can say that doesn't count as a tournament win. I don't count it as a tournament win. It doesn't matter. But in that play-in game in Dayton, if you win a game, for those kids, you've won an NCAA tournament game.
I don't disagree with that at all.
I don't mind that part.
I'm fine with that.
That's my silver lining.
I just, you told them that. I know, I agree, and I agree. I'm not saying it doesn't count as a tournament win, but to me, it's not the spirit of telling the little guy, so to speak, to go win your conference tournament and then play another team just like you in Dayton on True TV at 10 Tuesday night tip-off. It's not, to me, it's not the same thing. I don't think those teams should be in those games. Play-in game, play-in. They already played their way in. They won their conference tournament.
And now you get to play an extra NCAA tournament game. Now, the downside, of course, is the team that loses, they don't get to play. They essentially don't really get to play in the NCAA tournament in their minds.
So, but yeah, I want the number to stay whatever number they feel like needs to stay so that the formatting of the event doesn't have to change. Then I would be a little annoyed. I would still watch. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to, be like, I'm not watching this. This is this is a part, awful, whatever. I don't want it to change from the standpoint of, the weekends, the way they work, everything works very, very well.
So, in order to keep it symmetrical, the magic numbers, I guess, are 80 and 96. There's 68 now, but there's 4 additional teams added. If you added 12 additional teams to get to a 16, where you have a full round or half a round, I guess, whatever.
Yeah, couldn't you do you could just make it you could add 8 teams and have sessions on Tuesday and Wednesday where you have a noon, a 3, a 7, a 9 game or whatever for Tuesday and Wednesday. So
that would be 96 if you did that. Where if you had a full session Tuesday, Wednesday of games, well, I guess no, it would be.
No, you'd be adding 8. So it'd be
8, yes. Well, you'd be adding 12 because you already have the 4. 8 wouldn't get you to 16. You'd need 12 to get you to 16. Where you're playing in for half of the lower spots, I guess, is what it would be. Then you would probably, I guess, divide that up in between teams that are at-large teams and teams that are automatic qualifiers. Although, don't be surprised if all the play-in games are automatic qualifiers, Dave. If they essentially make every automatic qualifier from a one big league play a play-in game.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that.
I wouldn't like it either. But, I mean, I guess there is something to in a tournament setting. The team that played most recently has momentum. You see that in conference tournaments all the time. So you'd be giving the mid-major a warm-up game. I mean, we've seen a bunch of those, the play-in at-larges, win that second game and go on a run.
Yeah, that's why I think
out loud.
That's why I'm more than fine with every playing game being those teams because we have seen USF did it one year. They went pretty far. There's been plenty of the teams that have from the bigger conferences that have had a fairly good season that have good players, and then they get in the tournament, they get hot, and I mean, shit, NC State,
Right.
So I mean,
It happened this year.
those
year.
teams. That's why I don't like the Marist and the Fairleigh Dickinson in those games, because I know that the other teams can make runs.
Yeah.
They had 31 opportunities to win their conference, and they didn't. These other teams did, and that's just me, and I wish they didn't do it that way, but the fewest number that can be added, the better for me.
Imagine a Super League actually comes to pass and UC is in. Which teams would you hope the most are in the league with UC to play every season? It's a good one.
Teams we have history with: West Virginia, Pitt, Louisville,
yeah.
And then some regional teams, whether that's Ohio State, Michigan, Indiana, Purdue, Kentucky. I like the regional idea, but I also want teams that we've played. Like, somebody did I don't know if it was that study or whatever, and it was it was great. There was a bunch of fun teams that UC's never played before. Right. So that's not necessarily appealing.
Yeah.
UCF.
No. I want UCF. They can be in the Southeast one and get their teeth kicked in by all those. I think
they're a rival at this point.
I wouldn't mind, just because there is the fan bases are growing to hate each other, which is always fun.
It's what you want.
Yes, but no, I'd rather see them play Alabama and Auburn and Georgia and Florida State.
But I think that the consensus, just put us somewhere with Louisville, West Virginia, and Pitt, and everything else. So if we've got 3 teams that there is a distinct rivalry game with every year, circled on the calendar every year, I think anything else, I think people would be okay with.
Yeah.
For God's sake, Dave, Arizona State and Colorado and Texas Tech and Baylor, those are all teams in the conference. Iowa State, Kansas State, just give us a couple. And I think whatever else would be widely accepted. Would Sad ever give up play calling to Brad Glenn if the offense struggles again next year?
Highly unlikely.
I would just say no. I guess anything can happen, but the man has called plays his entire head coaching career.
Well, just, I know it happens, but show me all the time the head coach uses the play caller gives up play calling.
Right.
It just doesn't really happen.
When they're desperately trying to save their job.
Their job, yeah. It just doesn't. Yeah. But even in that, it just doesn't happen very often.
Right. Who gets more yardage with 1 carry, me or you?
Neither of us would make it back to the line of scrimmage, so we would both have negative yards.
Young me would have been the easy answer, but I'm not young me anymore. On an outside zone, I could have got to the edge. I was fast enough, taking a pitch and got to the edge. The only chance we would have right now is straight up the middle, and we're not getting anywhere.
We realize we're starting 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Right.
There's not an offensive line ever assembled that could block long enough for us to get 7 yards before a defensive lineman broke through and mauled us to death.
That's the reason I'm not doing it, personally.
No, that's why I always laugh when people are like, "Oh, I could get a yard." I'm like, "Bullshit! You could get." No, you couldn't. You have no idea what that speed is like and how far back you are, and.
All right, the questions are done for now. So I'm going to take that opportunity to do an ad read, and you guys can load up some more Ask Us Anything questions. So we've gone an hour and 10 minutes with this so far. Just throw out whatever we were initially going to talk about. And we've covered actually most of what we planned to talk about.
I want to talk about the draft stuff that you guys talked about Monday night.
Okay, we'll get to that. Maybe when we get back from this ad read, we'll get to that and allow some questions to build up. This timestamp brought to you by Turtles Brew. 6% ABV, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, bourbon infused sweet tea. They have lemonade tea, strawberry mint, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. They are now in 12-ounce pouches. You can either get them in a 5-pack or individually. There are over 100 locations around Ohio, more than 50 in Cincinnati. If you want to find where you can locate Turtles Brew, go to turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations. Remember, a portion of the proceeds go to save the sea turtles. The question Monday night, and I thought initially this number was high, but then as we talked it out, it didn't seem as high, still seemed a little high, and I probably would take the under, but number of Bearcats selected in next year's NFL draft. And the over-under was set at 5.5, Dave.
Okay.
The easy answers were Corleone and Kandra.
Okay.
I think both of those guys pretty solid that they're going to go. And then Xavier Henderson, Joe Royer. I think there was one more that we had in the category of
Tinsley, Fletcher.
Yeah, D'Artagnan Tinsley, Mason Fletcher. Those were kind of the names we came up with. Potentially, yeah. I mean, we need to.
So
I need to see more from Mike Coleman before I'm ready to put him on draft boards. But
right. So I have a couple thoughts. Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl.
Yes.
About Senior Bowl time. So that was February. Sent out a tweet talking about kind of how they go about looking at potential players to invite to the Senior Bowl and where those guys come from, because it's a little different now with the COVID years and you know, it used to just be seniors, but now it's like if you would have been a senior, like I'm not sure the extent of it all, but so you have a bunch of just random teams listed. It didn't seem like any rhyme or reason to any of them, but UC was included, and so they're looking at 24 potential players from this UC roster who I guess they envision could be someone that they need to watch for an invite to the Senior Bowl. So to kind of put that in your mind as far as like the type of talent that's being evaluated for potentially going to the Senior Bowl. So then I kind of looked at what you guys looked at. I looked at it a little bit differently in the not so much as like the number that's going to get drafted. I looked at going into this year who I think draftable players could be based on how they play. And I think I have 10 on the list. Okay. So I circled Dante, Micah Coleman, Xavier Henderson, Derek Canteen, Joe Royer, Corey Kiner, Mason Fletcher, Gavin Gerhardt, D'Artagnan Tinsley, and Luke Kandra. Those are the guys that I think, based on what they've already done, based on the position they play, based on their traits, are guys that, if they have a good year, that I could see getting drafted. Now, I don't believe that every one of them will. But that's kind of the way I looked at it as who I would think going into the year. Scouts are going to be coming to practice looking at, of the draftable guys, like those are the guys I think they would be paying the most attention to, asking the most questions about. So a lot of the names you guys
5.5 over or under.
6 guys get like I UC fans were totally spoiled by 2021. Like sure. 6 guys getting drafted in one class is an insane amount.
It's a ton.
Michigan had 18 guys invited to the combine. There was talk of them potentially breaking the draft record. They came too short. They had, I think, or at least one or two short. Had either 13 or 14 guys drafted, and they had the most guys ever invited to the combine. So we're talking about 6 or 7 fewer than that off a undefeated national championship team. Like, so I'm gonna go under.
Yeah.
But that's
what if it was 4.5?
I'd still probably go under. Because
I think 4 is probably.
I think Mason Fletcher's like one of the most likely guys to make a team and get a very nice undrafted free agent signing bonus. But like, how many teams are going to use a pick on punter?
Right.
So like
last year it was 2. This year
was it 2? I know Troy Taylor got drafted in the 4th round. I didn't know if another one got drafted or not.
There's one other one at the end.
So like, I mean, he's 1. So very unlikely that not because of him. Like, usually teams, if you have a punter, you keep him if you have a good punter, you keep him for a long time. So not everybody's looking to draft one. And 2, if you're, depending on what phase you are in your team, you're like, we're not using a pick on a punter. Our roster stinks. Right. Like we need position players. So, I put Canteen on here because of I think he's got some position versatility. I think teams could see him, depending on how he does this year, as the safety or corner. I don't know if he's played any inside. That would be something I'd be interested in for this exercise. Micah Coleman has that D-end body. So does the production marry up with that? And if he's a good tester, you're looking at a late round flyer guy that you're like, the production maybe wasn't there, but he's got the traits and he was a good tester. So in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, we're going to take a shot on that guy.
Right.
So, that's kind of where I'm at in that regard. But certainly guys can jump on, jump off, like just have to wait and see. It will be interesting because this year's draft had, I think, a pretty weak day 3, especially like 6th, 7th round. Next year's draft, I think, is loaded. I saw one tweet, I don't remember the team. They said they had 170 draftable grades on guys that decided to go back to college.
Damn. Guess what? Might be more money in college
for a lot of that's what they're saying. Like, you go back to school, you're a college student another year, and you get X amount of dollars versus being a 6th or 7th rounder and being in a struggle to make the team.
And potentially on the taxi squad or the practice squad, making, it's like $4,000, $5,000 a week, whatever it is. It's still a pretty good amount of money, but your life is just chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, because next year will be the end of the COVID stuff. There will be no COVID guys in the draft next year.
Favorite UC athlete not named Kelsey? Just personal favorite? Like, that's, like the best UC athlete not named Kelsey, the favorite, like, guy that was the best to deal with.
I don't deal with any of them, so mine would be as a fan.
Yeah. Mine's going to be different. Who would yours be?
Probably I'd have 2, Kenyon Martin and Marty Gilliard.
Yeah. I think those are safe.
Like when UC should have won the national championship 2000, I'm a senior in high school, like as the height of being like a sports fan of like my team is awesome and I'm making sure everybody knows that they're, so, and then like just what Marty was able to do from capturing a kind of the guy that kind of not single-handedly, but like
in large part, yeah.
He kind of captured and turned, you kind of helped be a major part of what UC football has now become. That started in that era.
SK I think is really important in that he kind of ushered back in that next wave of success, even though they didn't end up, going deep in the tournament, as we all know, over that mixed run of 9 straight tournaments. SK is way up there. Logan is way up there. And Kenyon's obvious.
Yeah.
As a person, there were no 2 people that have played for this university that were better people than Gary and Trey. Gary Clark and Trey Scott. Like, they were elite. Dez has a special place. Tony has a special place. I don't know. There's a lot. It's that Jack. The thing is, that question gets really hard when, one, I've been a fan my whole life. 2, I've been doing this now for 17 plus years. It's a lot of guys. Unfortunately, one of my favorites passed away this week or last week, whenever it was. Rest in peace, Big Country.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Who was as good of a dude to deal with as any dude you'll ever deal with. So, yeah, we forgot to mention that the other night. I wanted to get some love for Big Country tonight, so I'm glad I was able to do that there. That people aren't going to like my answer here, Dave.
Okay.
How could UC get to the upper echelon of recruiting for Big 12 football? Recruiting for projection makes sense for where we are now, but what do they need to do to bridge the gap? They're already, like, are the numbers a little bit down this year? Yeah, I would let that play out, like, and see where it's at by the end of the cycle. 2, I mean, they were right up there towards the upper part of the league last year with their recruiting class. And here's the thing. There is no, Oklahoma and Texas are gone. There is no upper echelon of recruiting for Big 12 football. It's all right in this same basic segment. You'll have an outlier every year that pops up. You'll have a outlier on the bottom or 2 that pops up. But there is no upper echelon of Big 12 recruiting. How do they get to the upper echelon of recruiting for college football? They won't. They can't, and they won't. It'll never happen.
That's
being honest.
A sacred space for a select few. I mean, you're talking about UC's trying to break the barrier of, like, having an entire class that is rated in the 87s, 88s.
Right.
Those teams are having the entire classes rated 90 and higher.
Right.
So, I mean, I think yes, with Oklahoma and Texas gone, that what we've talked about as the upper is not there, but there's still going to be an upper. So how do you get to what I just said? The consistent 87, 88, 89 type of classes where you have 4 or 5 4-stars and then a bunch of guys in the 87 to 89 range, and then, you keep building those relationships, you win, you show that you can win in the Big 12, you hopefully have good, and part of it has to do with, like, where you're recruiting. Like, they need the state of Ohio and the city of Cincinnati to have good players to recruit. Like, that's always the thing that I not laugh at, but, like, everybody wants them to recruit Ohio and Cincinnati, and I do too, but, like, those players have to be good. You just want them? Do we just want them to recruit Cincinnati for the sake of recruiting Cincinnati?
You would hope. So I think there are some people that do want that, Dave.
It needs to go hand in hand. Like, yes, I want them to recruit Cincinnati, but I also want them to take the best players they can get. And if those guys aren't available in Cincinnati, then you got to go somewhere else. But
Yeah.
I think, and I think the staff and the recruiting staff especially, they and I think it's easy to say like, well, we don't, I don't really buy into the whole like just get develop the 3 stars. Like that's great, but like just get the best players you can get. I don't really care if they're 3, 4, 5 stars. I mean, your percentages of hits are going to be better the better the player is. If everybody thinks this guy's really good, yes, he can miss because you can miss on everybody. You're recruiting 16, 17, 18-year-olds. There's no telling.
Right.
But like, I always love the there were this many 3 stars drafted in the first round. Well, yeah, because there's a million more 3 stars than 5 stars. So if any of those guys develop and pan out to be draftable players, then yeah, you're shooting from a much bigger pool to say that with.
Sure.
So
sure.
But no, that they can, and they would tell you like getting in on those guys is harder because they're identified earlier. The quote unquote bigger teams with the bigger NILs are involved even sooner. So, but that shouldn't.
What's the new age problem, Dave?
Yeah, the new age problem is identifying those guys and everybody knowing, and
also you better not miss because they're gonna get some money, and if you miss, you're using money you could have used it a lot. I mean, I'm sure you can say that about everything, but
right.
The high school ranks are much more volatile in terms of, yeah, you're right. The top 100 kids, those you're pretty sure on those, and there are still misses, but you're pretty sure on those. As you start getting past that, like 24/7 generally goes to 250. So they go 32 5 stars because that's the number of draft picks are in the first round. That's their criteria. I think it's dumb, but that's their criteria for how many 5 stars. 32 5 stars. And then the 4 stars go all the way down to 247, or essentially 250. Once you get into that back end, those guys are 4 stars. They're going to want their NIL to show appreciatively that they are a 4-star talent. And if you miss, you're spending a lot of money on a kid that's going to be on your campus for a year, maybe 2, and never play a snap or play very, very few. It's part of what pickle. It's part of what is just drastically changing the landscape on high school football recruiting.
It's high school recruiting just in general, football, basketball, like the transfer portal. Like, I think we're still in too early of its infancy to truly say like how it's going to affect it. But
I think we have to get out from this COVID stuff.
Right.
The COVID year has everything, like none of the data is relevant right now.
Right, because you're comparing guys that are so far on opposite ends of a spectrum from an age and physical development, but just from the sense of like, do teams want 25 high school kids anymore?
I think they feel like they need them.
Because ideally, you want to say that you're a high school development program and not a transfer portal program.
Sure.
But at the same time, we talked about this all the time. Like, do I want a high school kid, or do I want a kid that maybe just isn't in love with his situation, but he's been in a major college strength and conditioning program for 2 years?
Right.
And I like him, and we feel like he can come in and impact our team right away, versus a 17-year-old that I like a lot, but I'm not sure how he's going to acclimate to college. I'm not sure how much more weight I can put on his frame. I'm not sure how much more growth he's going to like.
Or on the back end, they're 2 years in. They're only playing on one special team. They haven't, they're lingering on the 2 deep, but they haven't gotten any reps with the ones or gotten anything that's critical. Right. And the coaching staff says, we're going to go get somebody better. Even if that kid was a 4-star kid that you spent a pretty good chunk of money on.
Well, I mean, how many 4-star kids have we seen enter the portal this spring? We talked about this before. That the only thing on there to describe them was that they were a
4-star recruit
in the 2022 class.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not going to say that I wouldn't want those kids because that would be hypocritical.
Sure. I'm not. But what I'm saying is how many resources can you commit to a high school kid?
Right.
I don't know, man. This world is so nuts now trying to, there's just no guardrails and trying to.
We need guardrails.
Look, Dave, I once drove on a mountain in a cloud, and the mountain didn't really have guardrails. So you just had your side of the road as a 2-lane road, your side of the road, the other side of the road, and then off of a mountain.
Yeah.
And we were stuck in a cloud. I would have felt much safer with guardrails.
Sure.
At that point. Most beverages Dave has consumed on a Bearcats game day. How many and what game was it? Here's the problem, Nick. He was too drunk to know that answer. So the answer,
I just don't count because
right.
I'm an adult, and I don't need to count how many beers I've had.
What game were you the most intoxicated?
Well, I don't know if I was the most intoxicated, and it wasn't a game I was at, but if anyone that listened to the first ever Dave After Dark
UCLA
knows that I had a lot of pops that night.
The expectations for Dave After Dark have been we have been incapable of meeting them in following Dave After Darks.
Yeah, there was trying to remember. I don't know. I mean, there's been
a sauce UCF game for me.
there's been some games where I've had to hang out in the parking garage for a little while after to make sure I can, get some waters in me and have a successful drive home.
You're like Benny in Dazed and Confused when he tries to get out of the chair and he goes,
"Nope."
Pulls the hat down over his face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there was but I don't know the numbers.
Hey, we had some people that you would have respected in the hotel over the weekend.
Yeah.
It was the parents from the Louisville Holy Cross softball team. They were playing in a tournament in Owensboro, and one of the moms had a legit cooler full of the big, like the 3-ounce Jello shots, not the little tiny 1-ouncers.
Yeah,
like the 3-ouncers. They're supposed to be like ramekins that you like put ranch in or something.
Yeah,
that's their purpose. And she had like 6 different flavors. One of them was rum, one of them was raspberry vodka, one of them was vanilla vodka, and they brought over 100. And they dusted them all off Friday night. Tuesday night or Saturday night, they just had like one of those bricks of Fireball shots. You know, the little airplane ones.
Oh yeah,
they had like a whole brick of those bad boys.
Yeah.
But I said there are some people that bring Jello shots like, we have Jello shots, and then there are people that bring Jello shots to get drunk.
Yeah, there's people that have Jello shots on Christmas Eve, on Thanksgiving, on birthdays, the tailgate for college graduation ceremonies.
Right. For your family brings Jello shots to be intoxicated on Jello shots.
Yeah, and they even now make them non-alcoholic ones so that Will can participate. He's a big Jello shooter. So we're starting to
That's just Jello, Dave. That's just Jello.
I know, but he likes the act of doing it like everybody else is doing.
What do you want to say?
See, he might have had fun getting drunk, but I got strep throat. I feel horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, you should probably
then go to bed.
Distance yourself and go back upstairs.
I
didn't do any of the Jello shots. I had a couple beers, and I don't mix liquor and beer.
Get out of here, you sicko.
Yeah, get out of here, you sicko. That's what Dave said.
Frick you, Dave.
But yeah, they reminded me of you when the lady opened the cooler and it was just an entire cooler stacked completely full with Jello shots. I was like, oh, those people are here to party tonight.
Have a good time.
I think we're about done. If nobody else has any more questions, if UC makes it into a league with West Virginia, Louisville, Pitt, and UCF, what level of thanks would we owe to UCF for making it happen for us?
I mean, like banner
all of it,
level, statue level. I mean, put the name on a building level.
Right. Thank you for putting UC on the map.
Yeah.
School that became D1 4 weeks ago. You got anything else? I think we pretty much hit on everything we already planned on talking about. We just did it in a more fun format tonight.
Yeah, I don't think I really have anything else.
All right.
Should be interesting the portal is essentially closed. I know there'll be names that'll trickle in, but will be interesting to see if, especially basketball has a spot. It'll be interesting to see in football if that stuff starts to shake out a little bit. We're in the month of official visits for football.
Yeah.
So official visits can take place, I believe, starting that weekend of the 31st into June.
Like the 28th, I think, is the earliest I've seen.
Well, I mean, like, I guess if they wanted to take one midweek, maybe, but like the weekend official visit window can, because we've had some guys start to, several guys starting to tweet out their visit plans, and we'll certainly see some commitments and probably clearer focus based on who's coming in for visits, who are true targets, and who might be able to be locked up now, who wants to go through the process a little bit more. So that'll be some news that we'll start having. So hopefully we'll start rolling in that regard.
For sure. Do you think the Fickle era gave fans unrealistic expectations of the football program?
Probably a little.
No.
Maybe a little, but I don't think it's wrong. I think you should have expectations. Like, should the expectation be
that's a dangerous line, though. Like, some people don't understand. Like, my expectations are ... Well, your expectations are bullshit.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I said, should the expectation be 12-0, 11-1? Probably not. Should the expectation, regardless of a coaching change, be better than 3-9? I'm not going to argue with you on that.
That's fair.
Like, because it was not a tear, even with the staff change, the conference change, the roster turnover. Like, it was not a tear it down to the stud situation. They might tell us otherwise. I disagree. But at the same time, like, would I have felt any different would I truly felt any different if they were like 4-8 or 5-7? Probably not. It was always it was always to me more of the how did it happen than the straight win-loss of it. like for a while, I was, even with the losses, I was still feeling like, okay, we're losing, but like things are. But then the second half of the season kind of went off the skids in that regard. So it's not like you could say we were 3-9, but man, they were in every damn game, and we just had a lot of crazy stuff happen.
No, they were in the first 6 or 7 games, and then
Right.
not
we
so
had
much.
we had a lot of injuries, and we knew our depth wasn't going to be ready for the Big 12. And then when you add in the injuries, then that's why it happened. Like those things didn't happen. So,
Right.
So, but yeah, I think take out the and talk about realistic expectations. And then but fans aren't realistic sometimes, or at least not as realistic as I wish they would be.
I would also say, look, I don't think it's crazy to think over the next, decade, because that's what they were in the Big East. That's what they were in the American. Essentially, in the Big East, they had a 2-year run where they went to the Orange and Sugar Bowls. In the American, they had a 2-year run where they went to the Peach and Cotton Bowls. I wouldn't say it's unrealistic that there should be a 2-year run over the next decade where Cincinnati football's at the top of the Big 12. That's not crazy.
I would agree, because I don't like. Of course, a team can come and do this, but I don't see a team that I'm just like, oh yeah, this team is poised for like consistently being one of the few best teams in the league. Like for the next 7-8 years, I could totally see this team being in the conference championship game 5 times and winning it 3 times. Like I don't
like what Oklahoma has done over a decade.
Right. I don't see that. That doesn't mean that can't happen, but I'm just not sure a program is built necessarily to do that. I think it's just a lot of developmental programs, and you try to take advantage of the years when you have a very good couple classes, and they just like we did in 20 and 21.
Right.
So I see a lot of that. I'm not sure I see a lot of multi-year carryover.
No, I think you're looking at 2-year windows. If you get really lucky, 3. But like a lot of this. What have we seen just from last year to this year? The Big 12 was upside down from where it was the year before, and that was with Oklahoma and Texas still around. So.
Yeah, I mean, we watched it from the outside for several years of how many teams went to the conference championship, and then you have new teams every year.
Right. Or for a while, it was Oklahoma against ... So, all right, I think that's going to wrap it up. Thanks to everybody for the audience participation tonight. I thought that went well. Maybe once a month in the summer we can go that route to get everybody caught up on what they want to know. Like I said, we had topics. You guys started asking questions and we started rolling, and most of what we wanted to talk about was discussed in the questions anyway. So that's going to wrap it up. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We will see you next week. This is the BCJ Podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail right here on BearcatJournal.com.